My name is Calvin Woods, and I'm 15 years old, and I go to Lake Taylor High.
Can you tell us how old you were when you first realized there was gangs?
Well, I realized it when I was around probably like 6 or 5, because I'm from Lincoln Park, Portsmouth, and there was a lot of gang violence around there when I was little.
Why did you decide to talk to us today? Because a lot of kids wouldn't.
Because I want my little cousin, my little sisters to know it ain't cool, because it's spreading. Everybody's starting to get into them. It's been like that. It's starting to get more now.
DeCalvin is just one of many teenagers in Hampton Roads that faces the threat of gangs within our community.
It isn't no way to avoid it. If you friends with anybody, you in it. They're gonna say you affiliated with it.
At an alarming rate, we are seeing more and more young people turning to a life of crime or tragically falling victim to gang violence.
I had a friend in Virginia Beach one time. Like, he was in the gang, and something bad happened to him, and he was trying to get out because that bad thing happened to him.
Does that scare you?
Yeah. Anything can happen to me at any given time or any point in my life.
If you've been following the media lately, a lot of the individuals that have been involved in youth violence, all have been gang affiliated. So to me, there is a problem. You know what?
As Director of Operations for the Southside Boys and Girls Club, it's Greg Shiver's job to provide support and guidance to kids so that they can reach their fullest potential.
Well, what we're trying to do is to really create a support system for them so that we can go ahead and help them thrive and become productive citizens in their community. That's our overall goal with them.
And every day, Greg battles against the fallacies that young people believe is the life of a gangbanger.
They think that gang life is just hunky-dory, that everything is going to be fine, that they're going to make a lot of money, that they're going to retire, and that this family of gang members are going to be there for them no matter what. And that's so far from the truth. And remember, at any time you can call me. Gangs only lead to 2 things: incarceration and death.
What is it about gangs that appeal to so many teenagers?
Let out some anger, frustration in the household and everything.
So do you think peer pressure has a lot to do with it?
Yeah, they don't listen for themselves, they listen what everybody else doing. To feel a part of everybody else.
Gangs are all over this city. They're everywhere. And unfortunately, the kids have to go to school. Their peers are gangbangers. So they see it. Don't think just because you live in a nice neighborhood or you're not in the inner city that there's no problem in your community. Oh yes, it is. You need to be aware of where your kids are. You need to be aware of who your kids are with. But it all starts with education first. Really opening up their eyes to some of the negative things that are going on in the community, and then taking that negativity and turning it into a positive, that they're going to be the ones that change that vicious cycle. And it all starts with them. And you have to instill that belief in them. And we tell them all the time, the world is yours. You just have to go out and get it. Grab it by the horn. It's yours.
Welcome back. You're watching Plugged In. Sabrina Jones is the program manager of the Partnership on Youth Violence Prevention. And since 2006, this organization has worked to prevent gang and youth violence by providing the resources for positive and healthy youth development. Thanks for being with us today, Sabrina.
Thank you.
Tell us more about what it is that you do and the mission of your organization.
The mission of our organization is actually focused on providing partnerships and building relationships among people who can provide opportunities, pro-social opportunities for young people to deter them from participating in gang and violent behavior.
We talk about gangs, and that word's come up so many times today, and maybe we should talk about what constitutes a gang. What is a gang these days?
What is a gang? I think the legal definition is more concentrated, a group of 3 or more people who wear similar colors, may do some tagging, but really the last piece of that puzzle is committing a criminal act. If there are 3 people, they wear the same colors and they're tagging, and it's not a criminal act and they're doing it on their notebook paper, it's not considered a gang.
What percentage of violent crimes are attributed to gangs and gang members?
I think probably if we were looking at it a few years ago, I would say about 10 to 20% of the violent crimes would be gang related. I think probably now I would say it's probably closer to 40 to 50%.
People always talk about joining a gang so that you belong to something, but is it necessarily an instant trigger to violence?
It can be, and I only say that because it becomes a fuel to the fire. You know, you add more people to the equation, you kind of are hyped up to do a little bit more than you would if you were just by yourself.
What are some of the other risks involved of being in a gang? Obviously, your safety, and obviously, we heard Edna talk about how her son can't get a job in society these days. Let's expand on some of the other big risks of being involved in gang activities.
And some of the risks, it doesn't just stem from association where you're an actual gang member, but it could actually extend to even if you hang out with gang members. Guilt by association functions more now than ever. And so even if you aren't committed to a Bloods gang, and if you aren't tagging or flagging the colors, you still can be considered a gang member just by association. So there's risk to your safety, whether you're actually a gang member or just hanging around some friends who are gang members.
What's the root of this problem? Where do we start? I mean, every problem you have to start somewhere.
Exactly.
What's the beginning for your organization?
I think we've identified a few causes. Obviously, gang culture is permeated in the media culture, whether we see what we hear on, in the radio or on TV, but it also goes to societal norms. There's neighborhoods that are okay with the gang's function. They're used to the threatening and the gang activity, and so it becomes a norm for them. And so those breed gangs.
You've seen it firsthand, but there are people watching this program who may live in a community that doesn't, have the gang situation as of right now. But for somebody who knows, what kind of effect does gang activity have on a community?
It really brings the community down in terms of not just value, people who are interested in moving into the neighborhood, but it also brings down in terms of the pride that they have for the community. Young people who are in gangs that are a part of a community, they all say if given the chance in 1 minute, they would move. And so we see less of a connection to neighborhoods and connection with the adults around them.
How important do you consider the issue of gang activity education to the community?
I think it's very important. I think, as Edna has said before, there's a lot of people that still don't know. Gangs have been around at least since 60s, 70s, and 80s, but there's still a large amount of people that don't know the signs. And so how can you tell? So awareness is always going to be part of our efforts. Getting
a community involved in something like cleaning up a park, pretty easy to do. Mm-hmm. Getting a community involved in helping control gang activity, not as easy to do.
Not as easy to do.
How do you get the community involved?
It could be something as simple as volunteering. Building long-term relationships is what research tells us works over time. So if you're a mentor from the 9th grade, try and stick with that child through the 10th, 11th, 12th grade until they graduate. So it's building those long-term relationships and volunteering in organizations that already have programs functioning. You really don't have to create anything new.
Sabrina, we've got a room full of teens here. We've got a group more watching at home. How do we keep them from getting involved in gang activities?
I think it's key to select your friends wisely. I know it's natural for teenagers to want to group together, especially with people that they've known all their lives. But if you know someone is in a gang or has the potential of being in a gang, try to stay away from. You can talk to them about it, telling them to join you. Don't, submit to it. But primarily, it's staying away from saying, I'm claiming this group or, I'm claiming this set.
People think they know everything about gangs. We read it in the newspaper. We see it on TV in the news. What are the biggest misconceptions when it comes to gangs?
I heard a young person say that, they'll have a lot of friends. Well, the biggest misconception is you'll have a lot more enemies. Now everyone else who is in an opposing gang is now your enemy. And so there's a lot of myths and misconceptions that are out there about belonging to a gang.
So we stress what? Positive futures. We stress aspirations for yourself.
Absolutely.
We have a lot more to go, as you can tell. You can go to www.preventyouthviolence.org for more information on how you can help end gang activity and youth violence in Hampton Roads. We'll be right back after the break.